Welcome to the Mom Boss Podcast, the show where motherhood meets business and everything in between. I hope you enjoyed today's show. Let's get started. Hey everyone, and welcome to the Mom Boss Podcast. I'm your host, Bailey Gordon, and today's guest is a really special guest for me. I have known Heidi for way too long.
It's embarrassing.
Maybe 25 years or so. We have reconnected through being mom bosses, and I just really wanted to share her story. Heidi owns a food truck, Sunn Health Bar.
Yes. Sunn with two N's.
Sunn with two N's.
Healthy in Norwegian.
Oh, I love it. Oh my gosh. Wait, what?
Yes. I wonder if people are like, why does it have two N's?
Yes. Oh, I love it. Okay. Anyway, so welcome to the show, Heidi Hawkinson. Welcome.
I'm so happy to be here. This is my first podcast. And
oh, you're going to be great.
So excited.
You are going to be great. Literally, you love chatting. You love having conversations. Like, it's so easy.
It's overdue.
Yes, it is. It is overdue. Heidi and I were like the class clowns on our basketball team in high school. Coach Bender.
In the Queen Bee game, I feel like she was the best in the middle of the basketball court. I think I almost beat her once, but her blockout was
I'm like twice your size. I'm like,
I tried really hard.
You're like really tall, and then I'm like boxing out like at the knees.
I think you and I were like the shortest post.
Yes, absolutely.
Sure. And somehow we got in there.
We were like, I'm 5'3.5", and
we're going up against these like 6'2" girls.
Yeah, not fair. Anyway, Heidi, tell us about your kids. Tell us about your home life. I would actually also love for you to talk about how you relocated to Hawaii and how you came home back to Washington. So let's go ahead and get started with just a little background on yourself.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like I could do a whole podcast on the whole story.
Yeah, we'll get to some of that.
Yes, that's a whole other story. But so I have an 8-year-old son and a 5-year-old daughter. My son was born in Hawaii. We moved here back to Washington when he was almost 1. And my daughter is 5. And they are just my whole life and my world. And single parenting. My son, born in Hawaii, moved back here because my parents lived here. So it's really, as most mom bosses know, and everyone in general, the free childcare is pretty vital. So I'm very grateful because I would not be able to do what I'm doing without the support of family. So I'm very grateful for that.
Totally. What took you to Hawaii in the first place?
I went on vacation there my senior year and I loved it. And I remember just making a mental note, like, this is my happy place. I've never experienced anything like that before. When I graduated, I moved to San Francisco for a little bit, and then I moved down to Santa Barbara. And I got the travel bug, but Santa Barbara was so amazing. The only place that I could think better would be to move to Oahu. So I bought a one-way ticket thinking that I was just going to be there maybe for a couple months, and then I ended up being there 7 years.
That is really wild. Yeah. First of all, I can't believe it was 7 years.
Yeah, and I didn't have it when I moved there. I had no place to live. I even lost my ID on the way there. Somehow I survived and got on the plane with no identification.
Oh my god.
It was a wild start to Hawaii.
Wow. That is a wild start.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I love it. Okay. And then while you were there.
So I co-owned a place called Health. Rewind to growing up in Auburn. I feel like, I don't know if other people were exposed to healthy food. I personally wasn't. I wasn't aware of what a superfood was. I didn't really know what goji berries or hemp seeds or chia seeds. I've never had or anything like that. So when I moved to Santa Barbara, there's this amazing place called Backyard Bowls. If anyone's been to Santa Barbara, you've probably been there. And I just remember like falling in love with the way it made me feel with eating these fresh, healthy foods. And I feel like it's more common in sunny environments. And I just felt so much more energy. Moved to Hawaii, it was even more the farmers markets. It was so easy to get the big avocados and started making my own smoothies. So when I got involved with that business is when the passion grew, not only for business ownership and working for myself, but also promoting healthy food to other people, for sure.
You're right. Like in Washington, we don't have the fresh avocados and like so citrus, and like it is harder to get access to some of those things.
Like I remember visiting my parents in Minnesota and I was like, how do you not eat these? I would get these big bundles of mint and basil, and then I'd go to their grocery store and it's $8 and it's flattened and it's dehydrated. So I think there's definitely a need for more easy, convenient on the go. And especially if you're not making it yourself, very few places can you just drive up and get a fresh, healthy, organic meal. So that definitely is one of the main reasons that like ignited this passion to just make fresh food more available and make it more convenient.
Yeah. Did you have a brick and mortar there, or was it a food truck as well?
It was a brick and mortar.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was also bartending at the same time, but that's the life with pre-kids, right?
Yeah.
Like, I would work 12-hour days, no problem. So it gets a little bit more interesting trying to balance
do
all.
this as a mom.
Yes.
Yeah. And your kids aren't young, so you're heading into a new era of motherhood.
Yes. Before it was, I think I've listened to your podcast before, and you've really explained it well, like the survival mode, and you get out of it, you do go through a little bit of PTSD, almost like, how did I do that?
Yeah.
And you remember just surviving the days of diapers and tantrums and sometimes getting 1 hour of sleep each night.
It's truly amazing what you have built. So you moved back from Hawaii, you came back to Washington. Obviously, you have a 1-year-old on your hip, you're moving back. When did you decide to start Sunn Health Bar? How did that evolve into the brick and mortar that it was? And then talk about transitioning into the food truck that it is now. The super beautiful, adorable pink food truck. It's gorgeous and amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Once you get a taste of entrepreneurship and being your own boss, it's really hard to go back. Even just the other day, I was bummed that I wasn't able to open because my son was sick, and then I had this moment of realization of I had the choice without worrying about getting in trouble. So working for someone else and being a mom, not being able to control your schedule, it's such a blessing. So I think in the back of my mind, I always wanted to get back into that. So when I had the opportunity where a location popped up and I was in a place in my life where it was possible, I just jumped on that. Fast forward 3 years of the brick and mortar, just life happened, relationships changed, and my life just took a different turn. I was also grieving the loss of a best friend, my daughter's aunt. So it was a big turning point for me, and I think when you hit these really challenging moments in life, it can either make or break you. And I think because of my history, thank God I was in a position to use that pain into power and accelerate that. And instead of giving up, I just think that it's important in this business to learn to pivot. And so instead of just giving up completely, I just said it's just meant to look differently. And with the cost of everything and the overhead and the uncertainty of my future, really, the food truck is amazing because I'm not locked into one place. It opens up doors for events.
Totally.
I actually had bought the truck before knowing I was going to close down my brick and mortar.
Crazy.
So it was, I'm going to expand. Like I was all about expanding, maybe opening up a second location, getting involved in catering. But it's sometimes when you jump and you don't really know the plan, I ended up getting the permits like a week before I had to be out of my brick and mortar, so I never had to close down.
Oh, wow.
So it definitely seemed to it was like everywhere when I thought I was going to crumble.
Oh, I have the chills.
Yeah, it was so many moments that I would be in tears just of gratitude I think from the outside looking in, it did not seem like it would work out.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to take that leap of faith too, because sometimes you think it won't, and there's always something there to catch you.
Wow. So that's funny because from the outside, it looked purposeful. Like it was.
Nothing in my life has been purposeful. I'm just going to put that on the record.
Oh my gosh. And you know what's so funny about you is you're so good. And I know that I'm totally pivoting here, but I've known you for a long time and you've always had a really sunny disposition. You've always been really good about, you're just really friendly. You're very kind. You're really empathetic. You're like all these things. And it's like, you have been through a lot throughout your life. You have been through a lot and more than most.
And sometimes you don't realize it at the time until you take a moment to digest it.
Yeah.
And I think it's important. I think you get to a point where you're in survival mode and that you hit a point in your life, especially as a mom, to process it. Because I think a lot of people don't process the hardships and the trauma. And I think my biggest challenge is healing and processing the past, the things you're healing that you don't talk about, and processing it while trying to be a mom, while trying to start a business. Sometimes some people are blessed to have supportive partners. Some people have maybe situations people are trying to pull you down, and the only person you truly have if you're going to go for this is your confidence in yourself. And I look at it all as a really big blessing now, and it's something where I hope that it could be a good influence for my children as well. Oh,
it's really inspiring.
Yeah, I feel the same about you.
No, gosh, I can't imagine. You have been through so much in building a business, and like you just mentioned, like having to pivot from having a brick and mortar, like a solid location where you were every time, and like how it just happened that you got your permits the week before. Like
I definitely believe in the power of positivity and the mindset. I would definitely not be where I am if I didn't intentionally make a point of seeing the positive and even the negative situation. And I don't know if that just came from my childhood. And another thing that I've never really talked about or mentioned is my passion that I don't think I realized is why is that as when you've had your history with illness, my sister died of leukemia when she was 7, and then my brother was diagnosed with a brain tumor when he was 5, and cancer and sickness runs in my family, and it's affected all of us. And I never really tied that to something that we can avoid. And I'm not saying that food is the only way we can avoid it, but I think that if we have one thing we can control with what we put into our bodies and what we serve, I want to be part of the change, just like ridding the chemicals from the food and the neurotoxins. And I think that we can only focus on what we can control, and what we put in our bodies is one, helps us feel better, live better, and helps us be better parents too.
Yeah, you're so spot on. It's such a hard thing. And you mentioned it earlier, how like the access to that food it's hard to get access to. And it's expensive. Yes, it's more expensive. Yes. It's hard to get.
They charge you more for food they don't poison. And the convenience too.
Yes,
like,
convenience.
I can't tell you how many times even just at this football game event, one thing with the food truck, I'm realizing so many people are like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy you're here. Usually I have to pack my own food, or it's going to be something I can't eat, because I don't know if you've realized, I feel like in the past decade, there's been so much rise in allergies and intolerances, and people are really having a hard time finding things to eat that don't make them feel sick.
Yeah. Yep.
And I feel like we're at this point where we can slowly make the change. Like even going to Auburn High School and not really having too many options to go where you can have a healthy meal. I want it to be, and a lot of people say I should go to where that target group is, but a big goal of mine, maybe I should go where it's not, because I think of my 15, 16-year-old self, it could have changed my life if there was some place down the road that had a bunch of information on healthy food that I went to instead of, we did the Wendy's, the fries.
Wendy's, absolutely. I think I had more Wendy's.
And then I wondered why I crashed or couldn't pay attention in school.
Yes, I wondered why my ADHD was so rampant.
Right.
Yes, I totally. I think it's really inspiring, because I think a lot of people are paying a little bit more attention about what's going into their foods. I think it's so interesting how our grandparents, or any older generation, my grandparents grew up in a farming community. They grew up in South Dakota and North Dakota. And it was different. And so they had different foods. They had access to different foods. But then the grocery stores come along and the convenience comes along, and they had been working their asses off to get their food. And it's, oh my gosh, I can just get it from the store. And now these are luxury items, convenience, but they take away that, I don't want to call it pain, but it's they worked really hard to get the food that they got.
One of the few species that doesn't have to go out and fight for the kill every single day.
Yes. Yes. And so I think it's so interesting how we're kind of cycling back to how our grandparents lived before. And it's really interesting, right? It's, wow, they did things more slowly. They grew their own food. They knew where their food came from. They didn't get it all delivered on trucks.
Right, or we think we were evolving.
Yes. A lot of millennials are now parents, not everybody. But I think that they are craving that slower lifestyle. We've grown up both without the internet and with the internet.
We're the last generation to know what it feels like without social media.
It's really crazy. I really miss those.
Well, it's interesting, right? It's we grew up without all that, but then we were the test babies of all this sugar growing up on Pop-Tarts,
Kool-Aid,
and strudels, and Otter Pops.
I loved a toaster strudel though.
Yes, why was that so good?
Why were those so good?
Yeah, because there's chemicals in my brain.
Yeah. It's it's addictive.
Right.
But no, I think that it's so special what you're doing, and it sounds like your why obviously stems from your family history. It obviously stems from your desire to raise your kids in a generation where they have access to those kinds of foods. You're passionate about it for yourself. I'm just curious, what you just talked about how Sunn means healthy in Norwegian.
Yes, I know.
I'd love for you to
forever.
Yeah, talk a little bit more about that.
So those who know me know that I just love the sun. I feel like growing up here, when I discovered California and Hawaii, you visited me in Hawaii, I thought it was, if I didn't have my son there, and if I wasn't in a situation that I needed to leave, I would have lived there forever. And so I think that's another challenge, is I want to be positive, but I'm living in a place without sun.
We are literally, it is gray right now as we're recording.
The Pacific Northwest is beautiful, but when you're used to the ocean and the sun and it gets into your soul, it's really hard. It stays with me forever. I dream about the ocean every single day. And I've realized, trying to make my little happy place with the bright colors and the food and just those tropical vibes. So I knew sun had to be part of it.
Yeah.
But then I'm also Norwegian. I've always wanted to go back to Norway, know the history. And so one day, randomly, I just Googled, what does healthy mean in Norwegian? And it was sun.
Wow.
And so when I saw that, I was like, boom, and surprisingly, it wasn't taken.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And so that's what I built my brand around, just not only healthy, wholesome, but also the bright tropical.
Yeah.
Because for me, when people come up to the truck, I want it to be more than healthy food. I really try to exuberate just the positive energy.
Totally.
And I want people to maybe feel like they're on vacation. Like, it makes me so happy. People say, oh, I feel like I'm on the beach in Maui.
Yeah.
Because to me, like that aloha spirit, or even just it's a vibe.
Yeah.
It's
you don't have to be in Hawaii. Yeah.
And so I try to live my life wherever I am with that positive outlook, and I want people around me to feel positive. And I've had customers like thank me for being kind, have a smile, because when they came in, they're having a bad day. And so I feel like I'm not just selling smoothies. I want to sell that feeling.
Oh, I love it. No, I mean, you really do. And it's so delicious. I got the chance to try it at the Enumclaw Fair. And I mean, I had been meaning to come into the brick and mortar forever, but it just didn't work out. I had driven by it a couple times.
It was a tough location. That's the thing about physical locations that are tough, is that you can advertise all you want, but the nice thing about the truck, you could go to the people. And it feels very freeing. I'm a nomadic spirit in general. I don't really like staying in one place. And like, for example, starting in April 19th, I'll be in the Puyallup Market every Saturday, and then I might be going to Fremont on Sunday. And it's cool because for me, I love meeting new people. And I live in a small town, which is great, and I love raising my kids there, but I really thrive on diversity and meeting different ideas and energy. And so as a job that I can go do that all the time, it's my little hack to happiness.
Oh, I love that. That is so you. You'll love the Fremont Market. I think it's so eclectic, and
I just love farmers market. That's another happy place. Living, and I know that there's some around here, but that's another thing about where I lived. I just fell in love with those weekly markets and the community.
And because of the weather, you can have that all year round.
Exactly. And I don't know, one day, knock on wood, I have this big dream, maybe collaborating with more of a weekly, daily indoor market. I just feel like it's needed. We kind of need more of that tribal feeling that we're bringing people together.
Well, and that's why I started the Mom Boss community. It's like, this is a main factor. Like, I feel very passionate about this too. It is so important. We were not meant to do this life alone.
No.
And we are meant to have people in our corner, either supporting us and our kids, or supporting us and our dreams, or supporting us on our businesses.
Even if you're not talking, sometimes just having someone physically next to you to support, like you said, the work groups I think are great. I can't wait until I could join in on that, because sometimes when you're doing your taxes, or today I was paying some permits, and it can get isolating. When you're not going and working with coworkers.
Totally. Like, you can't just lean over and be like, hey, Bailey, where'd you submit this permit? I just can't, my brain can't think of it right now. Or I don't know how to Google what I don't know how to Google. Like,
or is this a scam, or is this fake? I don't know.
Do I put this on my truck, or do I hang it in the, I don't know where I put this. So
no one was there to stop me when I painted my walls bright green and yellow the other day.
You're like,
bringing all the vibes.
Your food truck really is beautiful. And you worked with Steph.
Yes, I love Steph from Vim. She helped me so much.
Yes, she helped you do your branding. And I think she did an excellent job of bringing out the heart-centric vibe of what it is that you want to bring to the Pacific Northwest. Anybody who's ever seen your truck or knows your truck, they see it from afar, and they know they can spot it from a mile away.
Yes, I love that kids love it too, because it's so bright.
It's so beautiful. And the fruit looks like just amazing on it.
So they did really good.
Oh, it just looks so good.
And Enumclaw did the wrapping. They did a really good job too.
Oh, they did a great job. And it's just, I don't know, I think it's been so special to watch you grow from Hawaii and bringing over this spirit into the Pacific Northwest, and what you're doing with the food truck now. And I literally cannot imagine, I know you're in your brick and mortar, but I can't imagine you in the brick and mortar. It almost makes more sense that you do have the food.
It's so funny how sometimes you have a vision, or you create this, and I'm sure everyone watching that starts a business can relate, where you have an idea, but it takes on an idea of its own.
Totally.
And there's so many unexpected things, and it's all intertwined with your personal life and business. And I think the key is to be okay with that and surrender and realize, I don't know what it's going to look like. I have an idea, but it could, if you would have told me I would have been full-time in a truck, I was thinking I was going to open up 3 different stores. But now I couldn't imagine it any other way.
Yeah. And so talk about the process. I had wanted to hire you for an event in another county, and you had mentioned you couldn't sell food in that counny, or you couldn't operate in that county.
Situation is very different, and that was the crazy thing, is since I started this process,
there's
so many permits and so many hoops to jump. I think a lot of people think you could start a food truck and then just pop wherever you want. I am licensed for Pierce and King County, But luckily, they do have some loopholes where if you're just, say if I went to the Gorge for Dave Matthews Band or something, you can get temporary event permits, but sometimes they're really expensive, where if you're just doing it for one day, it's not worth it, because they'll charge a few $100s, but they'll charge that same few $100s if it was the whole month. So there's some weird gray areas.
Crazy. Yeah. How are you figuring it out?
Honestly, it's insane. Looking back, I can say I'm very proud of myself.
Yeah.
I always joke, maybe if I would have known that it was so tricky, maybe I would have never started. But it was one of those things that once you get started and you put in the time, you're like, I knew in my personal situation that I was in, and that's why I feel like there is beauty in hardships, because I've realized that I do best when backed against a wall, and you don't really have any other choice but to make kids succeed. I listen to a lot of Eddie Pinheiro, and he always says sometimes the best thing you could do is burn the rescue boats, because I just didn't have any other options. So I did a lot of research online. I called the health department a million times, driving people crazy. I've driven to because I have ADD, I'm very unorganized. And
totally.
So I'm not Steph from Vim can definitely attest. I'm not good with computers. I'm not good with all that. I'm a very face-to-face person.
Yeah.
So luckily there are people that walk you through it, but it's definitely a lot of work.
And you mentioned it, but having ADHD or it's so funny because people with ADHD are really good with businesses, which is hilarious.
Yes. I just had this conversation because I'm not good with all the paperwork and sitting still, but I could be alone in a food truck and I could serve 150 smoothies, have 8 orders in my head. Yeah. And because I'm the most comfortable in the chaos.
Yes.
That I am very organized in the chaos.
Yeah.
So this is why this business works for me with kids too, is because there's so much going on that it actually helps me focus.
Totally. I think that's amazing. That is such a good visual. It's such a good, it's a very good reminder that people, and I say this a lot to people, I have people who don't think that they can do something because they're not organized enough or they aren't focused enough or whatever. It's the age old, how many times were you told in school, Heidi talks too much, Heidi doesn't pay attention, Heidi doesn't focus.
I was teaching math and you were just way over here. I was like, yes, because I don't like math and I don't really care.
No.
But I also think it's very true that whatever you tell yourself is true.
Yes.
And so when you are told that, especially as a kid,
impressionable
you believe that.
child,
I'm just not a good test taker, or college isn't for me. And I tried college, and homework and focusing was really hard. I've just always had a desire for, if I'm not passionate about something, it's hard for me to even pretend to want to care.
Totally.
So I feel like I finally found something I'm passionate about. So it's a deal breaker for me to do anything in my life that I feel is a waste of my energy.
Totally. Oh, I love it. It's so true. Why? Somebody said this. I said it on another podcast, but if it's not a hell yes, then it's a hell no.
Exactly.
And I think that's totally.
I do that with I feel like our time is valuable. It's the most expensive currency we have. And if I'm not fully in it, then life is too short.
Totally.
You lose enough people in your life and you realize I'm just going to do something that makes me happy, empowers me and other people, and take it one day at a time. Oh yeah, that's beautiful. I'm just so proud of you. It's amazing to see what you have grown into. Let's talk a little bit about doing this as a single mom. Your kids, they're 8 and 5, so it's not like they're young, but they were. When I started, she was not even 1, I don't think. And he was 4. Yeah. So you made this huge pivot. Yes. Yeah, which looking back, also truly as I've grown, I truly believe in your gut feeling. Yeah. And I had this, everyone said, oh, they're so young, they're so little, are you sure? And luckily I had the time, I had the whole year so my daughter was born January 2020, right before COVID hit. Yes. So I had that whole year with them, and I was being paid, thank God. So I didn't have to worry about my bills, and I was able to spend that whole year with my kids. Yeah. But also I had time to start a business. Yeah. Because I was like, okay, what am I doing? I'm ADHD. Because I can't just start breastfeeding. Yeah. Obviously, I'm creating a design for a logo. Yes. Obviously, I'm manifesting a whole business right now. Yeah. So everyone was against it, and you just got to keep going with your gut feeling. And it was difficult, but at the same time, I'm so grateful for those memories. I have pictures of my kids that are helping me, and I love listening to my son. We'll go places and he'll be like, oh, you should try my mom's smoothies, or he's advertising for me. And, and they've grown up with your food truck. Yeah, and I heard someone say, don't teach your kids how to build their dreams, show them how to build yours. And I think that our kids are sponges, right? So they've seen the hardships, they've seen the failures, they've seen the struggle. And as a single parent, my son's 8 now, so I've been very honest with him. sometimes I do get overstimulated, and it's a lot. You've had a really 10-hour day. Like the other day, I'm just blood, sweat, and tears, and life happens, like heartbreaks happen, stress happens, and I have my son full time. So there's not that other parent to tap out and be like, I just need a minute.
Yeah.
There's a lot of tears in the bathtub. There's a lot of, I think a lot of people see the success and the great, but I don't think they realize the behind the scenes, like it's it's hard.
Yeah.
But I've realized to just be honest. Like I told my son, I'm very honest. Hey, if I'm big on apologizing, and like I'm maybe a little stressed out that day, but I've learned to really pour into myself. Like I gave up alcohol about a year and a half ago. I've been switching my cocktails for tea and journaling and taking that me time. And I think calming my nervous system and being my rock has been everything to me. It's the one thing no one can take away. And so building that safe space for myself, I feel like in turn is just creating that for my whole family. And I'm learning to love what I have. I think sometimes we tend to look back on what we could have or what could have been, and then you're like, no, it's so perfect the way it was.
Yeah.
And I want to trade it for the world.
Yeah.
And that just opens up more doors and opportunity. And it makes me really excited for the future. Because I'm like, I still got like 40 years of work left.
Totally.
Who knows, what can happen.
Well, that's what's great about running a business that you love is you don't look forward to it being over.
Ooh, you're like, what is this going to turn into?
What more can I do? Can I take it to schools? Can I get into schools? Can I get into these?
You work 12 hours and feel like you did nothing.
Yes, totally. You want to keep going. You're like, oh, I could work 72 hours of it. No, and that's part of there's a saying, and one of my strength coaches used to say it. That's why your windshield is bigger than your rearview mirror.
Yes.
And it's just, you can see so much more in your windshield and just like what's ahead of you than you can on what's behind you.
Yes.
And so it is really important to carry forward. You can't go backwards.
Right.
And you just, it's not worth your energy. It's not worth your time. And
the past was there to make you who you are.
Yes.
I think it's so good to remember those lessons. But yes, leave it in the past and just move forward. That's been, to me, like that's the biggest thing for my anxiety is that I don't live there anymore.
Yeah.
A lot of people that know me from years ago, it's like I'm still the same person. I'm also completely different at the same time.
I think it's so funny because I knew you a long time ago, but you're so similar. You're the same at heart.
We've just been through so many phases, right?
Yeah. There's a lot of different change and seasons and growth, and you've done a ton of personal growth. And I think, talk to me about that. I'm curious how people respond to your personal growth.
Yeah.
It's hard.
That's interesting. I think that for a long time, I thought I had a ton of friends, right? And then you realize when you grow and heal, your circle gets pretty small.
Yeah.
So I don't really know, like, if there's a response. Sometimes it's funny when you say that. I've had a couple of other friends reach out to me that they've seen it, but I guess in our own head, we're our own worst critics, so we feel like we really haven't grown. We see ourselves every day and see it, but if I really truly, my situation now versus what I've been through, you do acknowledge it, and I'm like shocked with how much has changed. So yeah, I don't know. I guess in my head, I don't know how other people have responded or even noticed.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't really, I don't know, come up to you and say, hey, I've noticed you.
Yeah. I think like too, sometimes what'll happen is like people will stop drinking and then people will have like visceral feelings about that. Or
definitely,
like,
I don't get invited to things as much anymore. But in the past, that used to kind of bother me, and I just feel like a very big shift.
Yeah.
And I've realized that's okay, and that people are in your life for a season. And what's funny, like we were just talking about, like a mutual friend that kind of comes back around. I've truly realized that the people that are meant to be in your life come back.
Yeah.
Like even us after all these years, or some friends, or even people from different states, the real people that are meant to be there always recycle.
Yeah. And I have been in touch with a couple other friends that like were best friends from high school or best friends from youth. And it is so crazy. Something will maybe make you think of them, or something will like trigger a memory, and you're like, I need to reach out to that person.
And then they're like, I needed you. How did you know?
Yes, like how did you know? Like I wanted to connect with you. I've been thinking about you too, or like whatever. And it's just so interesting. And then you might not talk again for another few months because it's just, that's not the season you're in. But it is like you have those deep rooted relationships that can stand the test of time, even though you're not close all the time. You're not close in proximity even, but it is super cool. It is fun to be able to
my idea
bring that
of
out.
Friendship has definitely changed over this for sure. It's definitely quality over quantity.
Yes.
And I think when you have so much going on in your life with business and kids, you really just need that positive, real energy. So
Yeah.
I'm very selective now with who I really let into my inner circle,
Yeah.
and that's really helped me like protect my peace.
And as a mom who's raising your kids, you don't really have this additional support of a spouse.
Right.
And so you really, like, when you get time away, you really do have to be
Yes.
like picky about it.
Yes, exactly.
Like you can't just be
It's
like,
very rare. Like today's my only day off because my kids are in school, and it's so fun to be able to do stuff
Yeah.
like this. But I think it's so funny. I've heard people say, "Oh, I'm so lonely. I have nothing to do," and I'm like, "What?" I was like, I would crave that.
Yeah.
So now I really savor. If I ever have any alone time, I'm just like closing my eyes and soaking it in.
yeah, you're like, I would love to be at
Yeah.
home. That's why I love this community, because like we can reconnect and talk about stuff that you probably wouldn't get to talk about very often with like friends who maybe don't own businesses, or moms who maybe don't understand what it's like to run a business, or with business friends who don't understand what it's like to be moms. It's such a delicate balance.
Right.
How have you really grown a village for yourself to be able to grow your business? What have you done to put in place and curate your village? You moved home, stuff like that, to kind of make sure that you can.
Yeah, and that's probably been the hardest because I've built villages that have fallen.
Yeah.
And so it's been a huge challenge of mine. I think a big step for me was joining the Mom Boss.
Yeah.
I think it's just about not letting your anxiety win, because I think there's your brain's, oh, I don't have time or this and that. And some days, like we talked about even before this, you have these bad days and you make every excuse in the world not to show up and not to go. You see the fun Mom Boss pictures we take, but the behind the scenes of maybe your kid had a tantrum and you kind of just want to be like, you know what, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
But still showing up
Yeah.
and choosing yourself. I think that's so important, just to push yourself. I'm a really big, I think that when they say fear, my favorite acronym is like the face everything and rise. And yeah, I think that I just get to that point where if I'm scared or about doing something, I've just learned that means I need to do it.
Yeah.
Because it is easy to isolate
It is.
in motherhood. And I think I've had a lot of moms reach out to me and saying, you know, they also feel like single moms. And I guess I'm just a voice for the other single moms that work full time, in the sense where I think it's a different pressure when not only do you have to do all the parenting, but at the end of the day, you have to worry about all the bills. It's a lot of pressure on yourself to be like, I have to make the money and do this. And it's enough to make you feel buried. And I really want to push and be an example, not only for my kids, but maybe other women who are feeling like it's impossible. It is possible, but it does take a tribe and it does take support. And I did invest in some coaching. Journaling has been, with ADD, I hate reading,
Yeah.
but I have been journaling and the little things. So I think you have to do everything to pour into yourself.
Yeah. It's a constant work in progress.
Oh, for sure.
And it-
backwards, it's a constant ebb and flow.
Yes. And it's once you fall off the track, the problem, like, at least for me with my attention span, is I'll be really hyper focused on taking care of myself. And then suddenly I can feel it once I am not taking care of myself.
Right, if you're not going to do it perfect, I'm just not
Yes.
going to do it at all.
Yes. Or maybe I didn't get enough sleep. And then I didn't eat a good breakfast. And then I didn't drink enough water. And then I stopped taking my vitamin D or whatever. And then
like,
suddenly,
I'm being a really good mom and taking care
Yes.
of you right now, but then I'm neglecting
yes.
myself.
And then it spirals down into just chaos and destruction.
Yes.
How?
I might as well just burn the whole book.
Yeah, it might have just fine. We're done with this. So how do you pull yourself up? How do you find ways to like rise above and recenter and re-regulate yourself to like make yourself a good mom, a good business owner, and a good person to yourself?
Right. I think choosing to do the things that I necessarily don't want to do at the moment, right? Like, I think if you struggle with anxiety or depression or anything, it can be really tempting to want to just turn off the lights and put the blanket over your head, right? I think just pushing yourself to be okay with that feeling. Don't judge yourself for that feeling, but just don't live there. And I think I've been through enough where I know that feeling is temporary, and when really hard things happen, what I try to do is picture it like the weather. I say these emotions and times like the weather, it passes, and do the things that I know that help me, like nature, like going on a hike. Sometimes you're just so overwhelmed and you realize, wow, I just needed to go on a walk and get some fresh air.
I just needed to touch the grass.
Yeah, I'm like, weird. I just needed sunlight, air, and water.
Like
and
a plant.
It sounds so simple, but then it changes. But yeah, I just think moving my body, like trying to force myself to do some physical exercise, And yeah, just eating healthy has been huge for me. Ironically, sometimes I'm working so much serving people healthy food that I forget to eat it myself. Because I don't know if anyone that works in the restaurant knows the second you take a bite of food, a customer walks out.
Yes, that's totally how it is.
And salads are not like the prettiest to eat in front of people.
Yeah. It's like you're trying so hard to take care of everybody else, and then sometimes you get lost.
It's the metaphor that what we do, I think, as moms.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just.
And that's why it's so impressive, like what you've been doing. And how are you doing? Like, how are things going? How's the food truck business? How do you continue to evolve? How are you pushing forward so that you can have consistent business? It can be seasonal, like depending on how you get your food and how you get sourcing, all that stuff. I'm just curious, what does that kind of look like for you? Like a big picture, this is how I'm planning out. I need to do this amount of business, make this amount. Like, how do you get through and how do you plan that?
Yeah, it's been an interesting year because I always say we, even though it's just me. It's me and the food truck.
Somebody said this the other day. It's me and all of my Google Chrome tabs.
Yeah,
it's like it's me and all my tabs.
To say we.
Yeah.
It's been the first year. So we started January of last year. And so yeah, it's been a learning experience.
Yeah.
I think that I've learned as living in a state, there's a lot of taxes. And sometimes you think you need all these employees and then you realize you spend all your money on the employee tax. And so it's definitely been like a learning curve. But yeah, I'm just learning as I go. And staff has really helped me talking to like other professionals. I also think just being curious and like even going to say your groups, or I went to another event, and sometimes just doing what I love and socializing and connecting with people. There's these natural connections of, hey, like we're doing this event in Tacoma, do you want to come? And what I've realized is that your business grows in the direct way that you grow personally. And I think you don't realize it, but you are attracting because you're your own brand. And I have realized that the second I started working on myself, people have reached out, almost without me trying, if that makes any sense.
It does.
So I think there's a balance.
I'm very woo-woo. I'm like totally into it. I'm totally into the vibes.
You don't chase, you attract. But I think it's important to obviously look into how to grow. But I also think...
Yeah, you can't just sit back on your laurels and let everybody, they're going to come to me. I'm thinking positively.
But I also think people are really attracted to authenticity.
Yeah.
So when you're just out living your life, people are like,
we all
want to be part of it, right?
Yeah.
And then I want to be part of your group because I see that you're a badass and you're working this awesome woman event that I feel connected to. So I want to be there.
Yeah.
And so you just find your people along the way.
Totally.
But no, I'm the first to admit that I am just learning as I go.
Yeah. Well, I love it. I think that it's really impressive, right? It's really hard to
and it can be
do
physically
this.
hard. Sometimes you get home.
You've been standing on your feet.
There's a lot
chopping
of moving parts because I don't know if people realize, but you don't keep food in the truck. You cup it and you move it and you take it out and you fill the water, dump the water. But honestly, I would prefer that over sitting down all day.
Yeah, it is a blessing.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about food trucks. I didn't know. You're like, same. I still don't.
I literally found it on Facebook Marketplace, and I didn't even paint it till 8 months after I bought it. It was just sitting in the grass for months.
Yeah.
And I don't know if anyone knows, but the permits take months, and if I can give anyone advice, if they're looking to buy a food truck, is to buy it that already has the L&I sticker. Because it is a lot of work trying to get it up to code. So that was, I think, the longest, and everything's, of course, more expensive than you think it's going to be.
Yes, of course it is. Yeah.
So sometimes I need to remember that of what I've done to even be open.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you feel like, in business, sometimes you're like running this race and the finish line is actually the start line. When you're like, okay, now we're here, now I have to do this.
Yeah. I saw somebody say the other day that maybe you're not reaching the bar because you keep raising it. Yes, like, you don't really get to sit back, especially being a mom, especially being a single mom. You don't really get to sit back and celebrate your wins. Like, the fact that you've gotten this far is phenomenal. You should absolutely be so proud of yourself.
It is funny how we don't really hit that point where I think because I was watching the Universe documentary and it was about all the cheetahs and everything, how they have to make a kill for their kids to survive. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is modern day. Like, we have to show up, we have to go, but then we have to keep doing it. Yeah. Right? And so you don't really have time to be like, I did it. Because I have to do it again.
I have to do it again tomorrow. Totally. And I think that a lot of times what can happen too is you can feel like it's not enough. Like you can be like, I haven't done enough, or I need to do more, or I need to do this and this. And it's okay. Take a breath, look around, look at what you've built.
Yeah.
And then you keep going. It's kind of just a little bit like okay, put your oxygen mask on,
Right.
feel the
I have those
oxygen,
moments all
and
the
like,
time. I take a minute and I look at reality and I say, you know what? I've had my own business for 5 years. All my bills are paid. I have a roof over my head. There's just, you have to really focus on the gratitude in the times of stress of the unknown.
Yeah.
Because you're like, I am safe at this moment. You have to remind your nervous system that it's just one step at a time.
yeah. Do you have any books or podcasts or coaches? Do you currently have any, or any that you've worked with, therapists that have helped you get a lot of this perspective? You've done so much work on yourself. It'd be kind of interesting to hear like a little bit about what, maybe there's a book that you really loved. You're like, I loved this book for growth in motherhood. I've loved this book for growth as a business owner. Is there anything that you can think of off the top of your head? I know I'm just springing this on you.
For sure. I have so many self-help books. Like in the beginning, when I first, and I never really told my story with my son, and a lot of it's just out of protection for them,
absolutely.
what they want shared.
Absolutely.
But I will say it was a very difficult time where I was a first-time mother. I had no family that lived there. I was dealing in a hard situation. And I swear I would not be here today without Tony Robbins. And I know it sounds so cliche, but there was this sidewalk and Malachi was a newborn. And I just didn't know what I was going to do. I couldn't go to work. It was literally just me and him. I had just had this newborn. And I was like, I'm in charge of you. Completely by myself. And I just remember every day I put on my shoes. I changed him into his clothes. And I put Tony Robbins in. And I've gotten to the point where I had to like put one foot in front of the other and just keep going. So Tony Robbins was huge. Now I love Eddie Pinero. If I'm in the food truck, I'll just put him on in background. It's very uplifting. But I do have to huge shout out to Jay Skibbins. So Jay Skibbins is a co-parenting coach. So anyone that is maybe looking for help with dealing with the hardship. For me, I thought I hit my hardship in life, but going through another separation and my best friend dying and then losing my daughter half the time almost completely destroyed me. And I decided I needed help. I hired a coach to really help me with that, and he changed my life. Huge shout out to Jay Skibbins and the co-parenting community. Yeah. Just dealing with those. They're hard emotions. Yeah. You never think that you're going to become a mom and not see a child every day. Yeah. And so learning to still be okay and find empowering in that, and I've realized is that our kids are our emotional little avatars. If I'm sad when she's with me, she's just gonna feel that I'm sad. So sometimes it feels selfish to live your life and without them, but it's the best thing you could do. So when you get them back, you are what they deserve. Yeah. But it's a very unnatural feeling. Yeah. To not have your child every day. Oh, I can't. Yeah. It's very hard. Yeah. And I think a lot of moms that do share, especially at the beginning, it's enough where you're just. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Like, how am I supposed to stay motivated? Yeah, that's my why. Like, that's my heart living outside my body. Exactly. Oh, yeah, that's so hard. I'm really proud because I feel like I'm finally in a place where it works and it's fine, and I know that everything is working out the way it should be. But yeah, it's difficult. And you have to deal with other people's emotions externally, and like you might be doing the work when maybe the other side isn't doing the work. But what I have realized, and that is exactly the point that I would like to make, is that other people's action, you get to the point where it doesn't matter anymore. I've realized that you can heal without apologies. You can heal without, someone can still be the same person, but I think I used to seek that external validation or someone to explain. And I love the analogy of if a snake bites you, you try to find it and be like, why did you bite me? And so you try to suck out the poison. Yeah. And a lot of people leave an abusive situation, or they leave a hard situation and they think magically they're going to get better, but no, they're poisoned. And I think that I had been poisoned for 10 years of things that layered upon layers. And I think it got to the point where it was like, I'm not hiding anymore. And I finally just said, okay, heal, you can come out. And that's when my healing journey began. It's been floodgates. Yeah. Yeah, I like hadn't cried for years, and then all of a sudden I'm like seeing like a baby animal on TV and I'm crying. You're like, oh, that baby leopard. Yeah, it's like my feminine energy. I think another thing, we are forced into our masculine, and it can really affect relationships or just how you see the world, because we have to be on survival mode. Yeah. And so once you heal, it's like your body's coming off that. It's just like you get so tired and you need to rest. And I think embracing your feminine energy, even if it doesn't feel natural. Sometimes I put on lipstick, or I try to do things to remind myself it's okay to be in my feminine You know, you don't really have a consistent masculine. There's beauty and power in the feminine energy.
Yeah, that's such a good reminder for people listening, because you have to wear both hats.
Yes.
Like, you have to be the nurturing, empathetic, compassionate, and then you also have to be the hard ass. You also have to like help be the boundary setter.
I can see from a child's perspective, I can see how it's very confusing.
Yeah. Like, our society has set up working mothers to fail. We are not in a society that's set up for us. And not only working mothers, then you put in mothers who are building businesses, and like you're trying to do it piece by piece as you fly the airplane, as you are doing the things, and you have been building it right along with your kids. They've watched it all.
Yes.
And it's really interesting because you didn't have the opportunity to make your business before the kids came along. You didn't have the opportunity to decide standard operating procedures and KPIs and
a lot of
all the
people
things.
Might think, and I think that it's great. There's some women that are very blessed and want to and have the opportunity to stay home, but there are a lot of us that just don't have that option.
Right.
Some people might think, why don't you stay home with you? I'm like, we can't.
Yeah, literally cannot.
And even if I wasn't going to do this, I have to take my kids to school and pick them up by 3. And so I'm like, what job would hire me from 10 to 2 where I can make a living?
Yeah, totally. That's what's crazy.
There's absolutely nothing I could do. So
it really is crazy.
I'm so grateful that we have that opportunity where I can make my own schedule, and my son's old enough that he can come with me sometimes to events and hang out in the truck, and he's been into reading his books. And it's such this, sometimes I look around, I'm like, I created this.
Yeah.
And it's really amazing we live in a world that we can do that.
Yeah. It is really cool. And it is funny. You're right. Like, how does school start at 9 and you have to pick them up at 3? And who is doing this?
No, I'm making that much tips at a lunch shift. So.
Yeah, that's crazy. Unless you're at like Rick's or something, or Rick's on Lake City. No, absolutely. I can't believe I just brought up Rick's in a podcast. But I think that you've done such a good job of showing your kids what's possible and doing it. Yes, there are tears, but doing it for the most part with a smile and bringing the positive energy and
accepting both.
Yes,
right?
understand the negatives help you develop.
Exactly.
Right, all that.
And knowing you need to feel it to free it.
Oh,
That's my big thing. I'm like, I'm having this emotion, honor it, let it go, and then how can I learn from it and be better?
Yeah. And that's a really good example for your kids. You don't have a choice. You can't go run to the bedroom and hide and someone else takes care of them. You could just be cooking dinner and just crying.
And for years, I hid it. I thought,
had to be strong.
That it was a negative to show my kids my emotions. And so I would cry in the shower, or if I put on a TV show if I was having a hard day. And it was actually the co-parenting community with Jay Skibbins that he had the childhood, that situation with his mom, and he was sharing his experience of what it was like. And how much he would have benefited if maybe moms were just a little bit more honest. It's because if they're honest about their emotions, sometimes if they have a problem, they might be like, how the heck are you supposed to help me? Your life is fine and perfect. And I told actually my son the other day, I had a hard day, and I said, hey, I can understand why it might be hard, you not having a dad living in the house. I go, some days it's hard for mommy too. Because I don't really have someone to take over if I need a little bit of a break. And I think something clicked with him, and he understood that. And I was nervous to share that sort of honesty with him, but I think our kids can they can understand more than we think they can.
And especially at 8, and he's been through a lot. He's been through all of this with you. He has grown up with you.
I always think I hit it really well. I know they're smarter than
he senses your energy, and I think that doing the work for yourself, that's the best thing you can do for them. And doing that.
It's selfish to a lot of people, and it did for me too. And it's the best thing I've ever done. I feel like I put myself on the back burner where my kids would have the best outfit. I look good.
Adam Sandler.
I'm like, oh my God. Like,
how long has my hair looked like that?
I should have looked in the mirror.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. I'm in that phase now. That is spot on. There's all the sayings. You can't pour from an empty cup. You got to put your oxygen mask on. And it's like, blah, blah, blah. And then you're finally like, you do it. You drink the water from the cup that you poured it in.
You're okay to take up space in your own home.
I breathed in the oxygen when I put on the oxygen mask. Oh my gosh, I actually am feeling like a whole new woman. I am like, my kids are 5 and 4 almost. And it's, oh my gosh, like when I started taking care of myself, it is a game changer. And it is something you do have to work on every day. How do you show up every day for yourself? What do you do every day that you make sure that, okay, Heidi is taking care of Heidi, and if you don't do that thing, you feel it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. For me, like, a big thing is I'm a member at the YMCA, and my kids can go into the daycare, and I can go do a walk around the track or like a Zumba class or something. But it sounds so simple, but it's my nightly tea.
Yeah,
And
that's so weird. I thought you were going to say tea. That's so weird that you said.
So funny.
That's like weird.
It sounds so simple.
I was like,
I used to hate tea because
I hate tea. I hate hot things.
Yes, I did too. I do iced coffee all year round. But I think because in the past, it was my nightly wine, right? I gave that up for a lot of reasons.
And this is warm.
And yes, and this was like, it's still that like comfort feeling, because as all moms know, is that you wait for your kids to go to bed just to have a little bit of time where you can just be an adult and not worry about everything else going on. And when I warm up the water and put the tea, and I have this fake little fireplace that pushes the button, and I'm like sensory, so I turn the lights off, and I sip my tea, and I close my eyes, and I thank God for the day. I pray that like I'm living in my purpose, and I just have a little bit of that moment where I can just be present, and it's the best part of my day.
Oh, that's awesome. What a perfect ritual. Like,
it's a pause.
It's a pause. It doesn't have to be big and elaborate. You don't have to make yourself a bubble bath and put on cucumbers on your
Right. That sounds great too.
You know, like it doesn't have to be like that. It can be as simple as warming up my water, pouring it in, putting the tea bag in, letting it steep, and walking over and turning on my fireplace.
Yes.
It is rejuvenating. It is rebuilding you.
In Denmark or somewhere.
Hygge.
Yes, I read, Aunt taught me that book, and it was talking about that. I was like, so I tried to practice those principles of coziness and feeling that happy energy even when it's dark and rainy.
Yes. Oh, it's spelled Hygge.
Like and socks on, you're just, it's learning to give yourself a little hug.
Yes, it totally is. I love that. I have a couple friends who like really lean into that, and I'm like, ooh, I want that. I don't feel like I have that. I'm very chaotic. Like I'm very much chaotic. But I started drinking tea recently, and so that's so funny you mentioned that.
I never understood tea
drinking. It's the worst. It tastes like warm water, with
and does it even
leaves
get
in
you
it.
Like hyped up?
Do you feel anything from it?
Caffeine free now. Like,
yeah. I really like elderberry lemon balm. It's delicious. So just like maybe I'll send you home.
Right
Ooh, okay, I'll have to try it. I'll have to send you home with one. I'm going to ask you a couple more questions, but I want to wrap up the business portion and the motherhood portion. Is there any advice that you've really clung to as you've experienced what you've experienced? We've touched on a ton of things. I think we can pick and choose a lot of different things from here. But is there anything that you'd like to direct at the moms in the community that you're like, yeah, this is a big takeaway for me?
Yeah, I think my whole life, I've always been an instant gratification type of girl. I don't know if it's an ADD thing. I don't know what it is.
Dopamine.
Dopamine addict. And I've always been that hippie, like impulsive. And I think that I've paid for that, right? Because we're going for that instant gratification. And what I've been really practicing is the delayed gratification of doing things that might not be super exciting and feel good now, but it's going to be worth it in the long run. The best advice I've gotten this year and that I've tried to live my life is easy choices, hard path. Hard choices, easy path. And so it doesn't really, at the beginning, doesn't make sense, but if you do the easy things all the time, your life is going to be really hard. But it's like a trick because you're like, oh, this feels really easy. And then you do the really hard things and you're like, oh. And so it's just, I think doing the things you don't want to do sometimes can be worth it in the long run.
Yeah. Doing those permits and doing the hard,
it was not fun.
No, it's not fun. It takes a long time, and it's a long time.
And that's what
that's delayed.
All of a sudden, it looks really good when you see these other careers that are actually giving you a paycheck. And you're like, what did I do? And you're working so hard, so many hours. And when I first started, it's like diaper changing. And I'm like, if I worked this long at another job, like I would have so much money. And I'm so grateful I did that, because even though it was like a couple years of chaos, and it's building something that's going to be way greater than if I was doing something that was just in the moment that was easy.
Totally. Oh, I love it. One question I do have, why did you choose to join the Mom Boss community? What was it that brought you in? What was it that keeps you coming? Or what is it that you're really attracted to about a group such as the Mom Boss community?
I think it's kind of like earlier, is that I am really drawn to authenticity, and I personally knew you, and I know you're authentic and amazing. I always looked up to you, like since I was in high school, like your energy. So for one, I knew it was genuine, and I knew that it was coming from a real place. And also, you're right, it's so needed. I tend to, based on some experiences with like female friendships, I think that I'm guilty of being a little nervous with meeting new people, and I decided that I needed to get out of that comfort zone and put myself out there. And you realize that once you open up your vulnerabilities that a lot of people are in the same boat, going through the same things. And so I'm a lot better with just being more like raw and real. And the more I've done that with even people in the group and hearing their stories, it's just a beautiful thing to realize we're all in the same boat and finding a group that feels that way. I look forward to it. It's so much fun.
Yeah. Well, it kind of is. It's turned into a little night out once a month.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of, this is fun. And like you mentioned, you don't drink. And I try to be very mindful of that because I know that not everybody drinks. And so I try to make sure that there's non-alcoholic options as well so that people don't feel like, oh my gosh, it's just a wine night for moms. We try not to like really lean into the mommy wine culture. It tries to be very much everyone,
which is fun, but
it's
at the
super
same time,
fun.
what people don't, sometimes you're like, but now I'm so tired.
Yeah. So I want to make sure, you come. It's a place to unwind. It's a place to learn if we have something to learn. It's a place to take from it what you need from it, and that's the whole goal.
I love it too that I feel like I'm part of something that's also growing.
Yeah.
I love your polls. You're like,
I take a lot of polls.
And I'm like, it's cool to be part. You feel like you're part of something that's going somewhere.
Yeah, it's very helpful when you guys answer the polls.
Yes, I always answer the polls.
No, it's I'm so glad it finds people when they need it, and I think I'm building it for the person that needed it when I was in that place of I need this. I'm suddenly, like a lot of moms, you suddenly become a business owner. But like, here you are, January 2020, COVID happens, all these things, and you're suddenly being thrust into this. Now I kind of feeling anxious, or I'm feeling antsy, like I want to get something started. And it's now you've created this whole brick and mortar. And it's, wow, you just don't realize, okay, I wanted something to do. I needed a community to be a part of. But you don't have anybody supporting you. Like, there's nobody there to answer your questions. We talked about it. Like, there's nobody there where you can lean over and say, "Hey, how'd you do this? How'd you do that?"
One person, say a husband or a best friend or mother, that maybe doesn't want to hear about it all the time.
Yes, totally. Yeah, or they don't care.
Them every single day.
Totally. I'm that way. I have friends that I'll be like telling them, and then I'm like, "Oh, you probably don't want to hear about this." So it started.
I'm sure they do. But.
Yeah. They because they love you. Right. But it becomes like you have to check yourself. Whereas here, you can share that stuff. Okay, I'm really glad that you found us and that you came and that I pushed yourself out of your comfort zone. I wanted to just ask you like a few fun questions, just kind of like, just less talk about business, motherhood. Like we talk about it all the time.
That whole thing.
Yeah, that old thing. Like we're moving on. I'm curious, what's your superpower?
Oh man, my superpower. Not to sound like redundant, but I truly feel, and I've always felt, my superpower is staying positive. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
And I can recognize that even in the really, sometimes I'll have someone else see what's going on and be like, look at all the negatives. And I'm like, oh, but I saw the opportunity over here. I feel like in every situation there's a silver lining.
Yeah.
And I really try to look at everything is meant to happen for you.
Yeah.
So that's really helped me.
Did you do any like Enneagram, human design, Myers-Briggs? Do you have any of those things? Do you know any of those things?
But I forgot.
I was going to ask you what you were like. Oh, I'm an Enneagram 7. Okay. I'm an ENFP. Like you're probably very much. Yes. You're basically that. Yes, I'm pretty sure you are. Okay, so I just answered it for you. That's good.
I think I did one, and my top 5 was like the woo.
Yeah, you're a woo.
I'm a woo.
That's an ENFP.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm a woo.
I remember woo.
I'm a woo. Yeah. Okay, wait, when's your birthday?
January 14th.
Okay, I'm gonna.
Do you need the year?
No, okay. I do not. I do not. We don't get too crazy around here. January 14th. Yeah, this book is from 1958. It was my great grandma's, and it's got 3 lines about your birthday. Oh, cool. And it's basically, a lot of times it's spot on. So I don't want to tell you that it's spot on, and then you read it and you're like, that's not spot on. So that might happen. Okay. You are inclined toward extremes of optimism. What? And gloom. You are a good thinker.
The yin and the yang.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're fond of learning and have high ideals. Don't hide your light under a bushel. Overcome your fear of ridicule and criticism. Wow. You are enterprising and have excellent organizational ability. Nobody doubts you but yourself.
Wow. That is spot on.
Okay, I'm sorry. That's going to be the summary for this podcast.
Is crazy.
Dude.
It's so true because ironically, my greatest superpower is the positivity, but I also do the gloom.
You recognize the gloom.
And I am afraid because I do overthink some criticism at some time when maybe it's not even happening.
Yeah.
Like I remember one time, like sometimes there'll be a person, a customer, and whisper something, and I'm thinking, oh, she's talking about, she probably hates it. And then literally,
My dragon fruit's not any good, but she's saying this is the best dragon fruit.
But literally, this just happened to be yesterday, and I'm thinking, oh, what is going on this fall? And then she goes up, and I'm like, oh God, she hates me. And she goes, do you mind if I take another straw? And her friend was just saying, just ask her for another straw. Yeah. But sometimes we get in our own heads on being people criticizing.
Okay, that's called RSD, rejection sensitivity dysmorphia or disorder.
When am I going to grow out of that?
And it is such an ADHD thing.
Oh my gosh.
It is a
I've
thing.
Never really dove in, obviously, like TikTok, Instagram, ADD,
that's how I got my second diagnosis. Yeah. That's how I in 2023, I was like, Instagram's telling me that I have ADHD based on these memes.
I have it. Everyone in my life knows that I'm like the biggest. I put
absolutely.
The H is for Heidi.
Yeah, it is. It is. I know this.
I think that's why we have such good conversation though, because I can follow.
Yeah, we're like, you're over here, I'm over here, we're here.
People are gonna watch this podcast and be like,
yeah, this is wild. I can't believe they even understood a word. How did they finish a thought? Right. We should send this to Ed Bender.
Yeah. Oh my gosh,
he would love it.
He's a customer of mine now. Oh, him and his wife are coming to get the panini.
I just absolutely adore him. Yeah. Okay, I want to ask you some this or that questions, and I'm just gonna make these up on the fly.
Okay.
They could be good, they could be terrible. I might cut this whole part out. I don't know. It could be amazing. Okay, smoothie or bowl?
Ooh. Bowl.
What's your favorite item on your menu?
The classic acai. You can't go wrong.
Okay.
I'm just addicted to those things.
What's your favorite fruit?
Pineapple when it's at its sweetest.
Ooh, yes.
It has to be sitting for a couple days. You can't just chop it right away.
Yeah, it can't be hard.
It has to be like a juicy, deep yellow.
Yeah. How do you determine that?
You have to squeeze it.
Okay. I wish you could, you'll be listening to this, but so there might be like a clip of this, but Heidi's just squeezing the pineapple, like as if you can see her
That's
squeezing
the secret.
it. She just goes squeeze it and she just gives it a couple like
I'm like a professional pineapple avocado like.
Really? Oh yeah, you have to be.
Yeah, just to know when they're ready.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Day or night?
By instinct night, but by doing the hard thing day, because it serves me more. But I definitely, it's like I could be exhausted all day, 10 o'clock hits and I'm wired and it's super annoying.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a tough one. I would like to say early morning, if I can get up.
Yeah.
When I do get up and the sunrise, if I have to be somewhere, that moment of being awake and no one else is awake and the sun comes up, I feel so productive.
Yes.
Like I'm just taking on the world.
When the sun is out, I am a new human being.
Oh gosh, you have no idea.
Yes. I wish I lived in Hawaii. Yes. I need to go. I was telling Kellen, I was like, could you get a job somewhere like Hawaii?
Maybe when my kids are 18, I'll just ship it.
Yeah, let's just bring it along. I'm coming. What's your go-to meal that you cook like for a birthday or like, it doesn't have to be that you cook. Like what's a meal that's my go-to?
Oh gosh, that is so tough. This sounds really weird, but I love cooking lasagna. That's my like go-to gift if someone has a baby.
Yeah.
But I do a lot of just roasted vegetables. That's a really hard question. My kids.
What if you don't have to cook it?
If I don't have to
What's like your birthday meal?
Anytime I have a chance for my birthday, I go out for Thai food.
Oh, yeah.
I love Thai food.
What kind of food do you order when you go? Do you get like a chicken?
The pad see ew drunken noodles.
Oh,
so
that's
good.
so funny. Okay, so I've never had that, but you're the second person I've had on the podcast
there's something about the
to answer drunken noodle.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah, you have to try it. It's delicious.
I'm going to.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll have to try it.
Or Ethiopian food.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ooh, I actually really did like Ethiopian food when I had it.
Now I really need to figure out what I like to cook.
What's your favorite color?
For years, it was lime green. It's between lime green and turquoise.
Oh, yeah. I could see it was both.
In Hawaii, it was turquoise everything. The turquoise is a little awkward up here. My whole house is just like shells and turquoise.
Yeah.
Turquoise or lime green.
Yeah.
Or turquoise with coral.
Ooh, yeah, for sure.
Combination.
Beautiful.
Yes.
What city would you most like to visit?
You know, I've never been to Miami. I've heard it's cool. I've also heard Chicago has great public transportation, which I'm kind of like intrigued by.
That's the dorkiest answer I've ever heard. I'm really intrigued by their public transportation.
Everyone says you can just like get everywhere.
You know what? Paris has really good. Anywhere in the whole world.
Okay.
You're picking like Miami and Chicago for the public transportation. I'm gonna go ahead and tell you Paris has incredible
anywhere in the world
public transportation.
I would say I want to go anywhere in Norway.
Okay. Yes.
I just feel like
And you haven't been?
I've never been.
Okay. Yeah, you need to go.
Yes, like my mom's maiden name is a town in Norway, like where my family's from. So, and I just feel like being there would be so magical. I want to like yodel into the and see if I feel
You absolutely deserve to go. I hope that you get that trip for sure. Oh, dang it. I had another question and I just lost it. you said something. Yodeling, Chicago. Oh, yes. Okay. I'm back. I got it. If you did not have a food truck, what would you be doing?
If my kids were grown, I'd probably be a flight attendant because I love to travel. But if they weren't grown, I don't know, because I don't know how to do that with kids. I honestly don't know what
You're like, what is possible?
Yeah. I guess like maybe the school district. I just don't know.
You could change the face of the food.
But then I'd have to finish school because I only have half of college done. So I don't think
it's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
If I had a degree, I would say maybe at the high school.
Yeah.
Because I think that'd be fun. I was involved in ASB and the assemblies.
Yeah.
And I loved all the sports, and it would be nice to have a work schedule that followed my kids and have summers off.
Absolutely. That'd be amazing. Okay, and then
With transportation.
the pub. I can't believe that was your.
That was my first
I'm
time.
going to forever remember that. I'd love
I'm a real
to.
sucker for a good train.
I love a bus commute. Oh, that was too good. Oh my gosh, I'm dying. Okay, where can the people find you? Obviously you're going to have your markets that you're going to be going to, but where can people find you? Where can they follow you?
Yes.
And learn more?
So right now we're parked on Cole Street in Enumclaw, but going into the summer, our schedule is going to be kind of all over the place. So we, shout out to staff and the VIM marketing team, are helping put together a location calendar. So the website is sunnhealthbar.com. So Sunn with 2 N's, healthbar.com. And we'll post where we are. Because that's the tricky thing about summer is we're kind of...
Yes.
We're starting the hashtag Chase the Sun.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Yeah,
cute.
Yeah, so my goal is I'll probably have this location for a while on Cole Street, our home base.
Yeah, like during the week.
Yeah, but the goal is to be booked for maybe weddings or if you have any catering. I want to be in at least 3 markets a week, so you could just bounce around and find us.
Do you have anybody helping you that goes and does this? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Hopefully soon.
Yeah. And then, so I was going to ask you, like, about, do you share your locations, like, beforehand? Do you put them on your Instagram at all?
Yes, I need to be better about doing
like putting it in your bio?
Yes, in bio, I'm so bad at that. Usually I get there and I'm like, story, we're here. You know, I need to do it beforehand.
It's hard. There's only so much you can do,
I know. My friend, Soapbox Studios is her company, and she posted something that she said, I wish business owners knew that posting to your story every day is just like turning on the open sign. And I was like, oh, that's such a good free marketing tool. And sometimes everyone used to make fun of me. They're like, you got to post your lunch specials before lunch. Like, we can't be there like that.
Yeah.
But as it's like, you're so busy just getting there. You're
like,
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's my goal to be better.
That's another reason to be in part of this group is like people give you those ideas. Right. And then now, like maybe you didn't know that there's an app out there called Plan or Tailwind where you can schedule your stories. A lot of help. And maybe on Sundays you grab your tea, you sit down, put your fireplace on, and you schedule out your Instagram. And I know that takes away from that relaxation, but it might be.
Steph just told me, you don't have Business Suite? I didn't even know there's an app where you could check the messages from both Facebook and Instagram at the same time. I'm like, that's nice. I don't have to go.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just make things harder than they should be.
Same. I absolutely 100% do. I think it's just like natural because we like the chaos. It's like
do we like it?
Or are we just good at it?
I don't know.
I think we're just good at it.
Or if we feel like life isn't going right if there's not some level of chaos.
Yes. It feels weird.
We have to teach ourselves that my level of worth and productivity is not of how much chaos is going on.
I just started reading a book called The Big Leap.
Ooh,
and it talks about giving yourself permission to see the good in your life and accept that your life is good and and that it can be good all the time. Yes. And so it's kind of interesting, like how, it's okay. And chaos can mean so many things. Like it can be a bad thing. I see it as kind of like a good thing. I'm like, oh, I love the chaos. Like I love it. Like I thrive in it. But also at the same time, I'm trying to regulate my nervous system. Right. And I'm like, okay, I want to find a way to change that and channel that chaos into different energy. And so it's just kind of funny that we're talking about that.
I think a lot of the times we prove to ourselves that we can handle the chaos, or we, like someone said to me, you've proven that you can thrive in survival mode. You can thrive in chaos. She's like, but can you take off the armor? And sometimes the biggest challenge is to see if we can handle the peace. And I think that's where I'm at. Like, I've made it through the storm. Yeah. Can I make it through the peace?
Yep.
And know that I deserve the peace.
Yes.
And so I think that's me going into this next chapter of I do deserve this. I do
Absolutely.
Deserve this success. I did work hard. I have a seat at the table. You have to believe it first.
Yep. And you have to like truly fully live that. You're like, okay, yes, believe it from a deep-seated place in your soul, like where it's, yep, I deserve this.
Yep.
I'm here.
And you
I've
know
built
your
this.
self-worth.
Yep.
And that's
Yep.
once you know that, your whole life opens up.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you
Yes.
so much. I
Thank
know
you.
how valuable time is. And so I really appreciate you like coming and doing
I know
this.
we're both like, is it time to go pick up the kids
Yes,
now?
I was like, okay, yep, we got to go pick
got
up the
school
children. But I appreciate you like spending this time and like sharing your knowledge. I think that was a fantastic episode for both people who co-parent, people who have sole custody of their child, and also like people who are running their own businesses. If they want to have a food truck, all the things. You dropped a whole bunch of knowledge on us today.
No, and thank you for having that
Yeah.
platform.
Oh my gosh. That's the whole reason. I want to share your stories.
My first podcast ever.
Yay! Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yes,
thank you, everybody,
thank
for
you.
tuning in. I hope that you guys loved the episode. If you did, please review on whatever platform you're listening to this on and share with your friends. And we would love to hear from you. Okay. We will see you next week and take care. Bye.